So, for more on Russia's new offensive in the East, I want to bring in now retired Major General John Spencer. He is the chair of the Urban Warfare Studies at Madison Policy Forum and the author of Connected Soldiers: Life, Leadership, and Social Connections in Modern War. Pleasure to have you again, sir. Good evening. So, Colonel, President Zelensky says that the Russians have been preparing for the battle for Donbass, and it's now underway. How do you see this next phase of the war playing out? Because perhaps, you can correct me if I'm wrong, perhaps so, they may have learned from the mistakes they made.
Yeah, Don, I think you're right. I mean, there's, of course, lessons that they learned from trying to take over all Ukraine, and they failed that war. So they've started a new war over a much smaller geographic area. So they learned about the how hard it is to project power into a country that you don't own, and we call it interior lines. They have a new commander, so they learned a lesson about chain of command and needing a theater commander. But some of these are the same old troops. They're going to make some of the old mistakes, despite the fact that the Pentagon says they've added 10 battalion tactical groups, or about 10,000 more soldiers. I see this going just as badly as the first failed attempt going.
Our friend, Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, says that the next few weeks it's really going to be a battle of logistics. Tell us about the logistics that you think Ukraine has the advantage, like General Hertling does.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of General Hertling. I really admire him. I agree. We say amateurs talk tactics or fighting, and professionals talk logistics. And the world saw the power of that when Russia tried to take Kyiv. Ukraine they have a more disciplined force. They have more interior lines where they can create redundancies, right? So we all know where Russia's coming from. The lines are very clear on the map where they need to go and where they need to resupply. So those are what we call lines of communication. Ukrainians don't have that problem. You and I talked about this last time. Although Lviv clearly is going to be a target continued because they know it's a place where weapons and supplies come through. Mm-hmm. But after you get past that, there's multiple roads that the Ukrainians can use to get in. And oh, by the way, they're getting a whole bunch more helicopters. And what can you do in areas you control? Fly helicopters and get supplies, men, weapons, equipment to the front line quicker. I agree. Russia's going to fail in just supplying their people. It's one thing to get them there without them just being broken apart like we are already seeing, and getting demoralized troops to fight anyways. But then you attack their supply lines. Exactly.
So the Russians have been fighting in the Donbass for years. Like this part of the war, that part is not new. The Pentagon says that they know the terrain. How will it impact their tactics in the East?
Yeah, I understand that. They've been fighting there for like 8 years. They had the ability also to resupply from Russia into the forces that are in the East. It matters, and the forces they have there some of them are fresh. So this will be a high attritional, the worst kind of fighting we've ever seen. And that's why we have to get the Ukrainian.
Yeah, I think that's where you were going. It just dawned on me as I asked that question, but they weren't getting the weapons that they were getting from NATO and allied countries. And so therefore it makes this fight much harder. I think that's where you were going with your answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you and I agree that there's an urgency here. The 40,000 artillery rounds that we're sending is great. They're going to need 40,000 rounds a day. And the 18 artillery howitzers is great. That's one battalion. They're going to need 10 of those battalions of artillery in this type of fight, because the Russians don't have to go far to start pushing against the lines. This is going to be on the scale of World War II battles. I agree.
So let me ask you this, because the U.S. is saying that Russia has added 11 battalion tactical groups to their forces in the East and South. This is just since last week. So how could what could the impact of that kind of increase do? Does it tell you how the military leadership thinks things are going, that they are bringing in these kinds of numbers?
No, it shows to me that they're desperate again, Don. I mean, new commander, and I'm sure he has a timeline. Whether that's May 8th in the Russian celebration or not, he's being rushed. Even the Pentagon says we don't know the quality of these additional battalion task groups. They could be the exact same forces that they're rushing out of the Kyiv, Sumy, Kharkiv area and then rushing them in, which would be, the poorest form of fighters you can. we know that they didn't have these troops. They didn't call up their reserves. They didn't do a mobilization of their Russian reserves. So these forces aren't like this, the best of the best of their fighting forces. These are what they've thrown together and thrown at this because they're desperate to get some type of win.
Colonel, I always learn so much. Thank you. It's very good. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Don.
Yeah.